these mics are wearing masks. That's fitting for Texas Frightmare. Nice to see you. Speaking of masks, nice to see half your faces. Welcome to Texas Frightmare Weekend 2021. So good to be back. I keep saying it's like a depraved, dysfunctional family or summer camp. It's like our slasher summer camp. So it's so good to see you guys. Excited to be back after, I keep saying last year. It's been 2.5 years since the last Texas Frightmare. This is like, you know, the fourth iteration, and finally it's risen from the grave of 2020. And so yeah, absolutely. Round of applause for that. Thank you guys for coming out and supporting it. I mean, I think all of us in this last year have you know, we all appreciate this every year anyway, but like I think not having it, we appreciate it that much more, and having the horror community be back together in this way is really special. Another thing that and this is a perfect segue, another thing that I have so appreciated having is What We Do in the Shadows, which I just watched on repeat over and over to the point that I felt like I was just living in a weird, like, faux vampire documentary during quarantine by myself, which got really weird. But we're so excited to have our special guest from What We Do in the Shadows, amongst other things. So let's bring him out right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Texas Frightmare Weekend presents Harvey Guillen!
Wear this cowboy shirt. You know? You guys can hear me? No, it's not on. Okay, well, I'm a Chris,
yeah!
How about this? So yeah, I'm wearing a cowboy shirt in honor of Dallas. So
yeah! I think that's Dallas Cowboy colors. I don't know. Why would I know that? Sports.
Oh, the hoop and the thing, right?
Yeah. Home runs and things like that. And I'm just your regular human host, James Wallace. Hello. We gotta start out because now you're getting you know, this kind of came about where there weren't conventions, and now you get to go to conventions. We were talking this like only your second convention ever. What is it like to show up to these and like not only get to meet the fans of the show who, I don't know, fans of the show, we love it in a different way because I think the way we experienced the movie was it felt like something special that we found that nobody else knew about. But what is it to meet these fans and then like see the cosplay? The cosplay is so good.
It's so good. It's really good. It's weird because, you know, we started the show and premiered you know, 3 years ago, and season 2 premiered at the beginning of the pandemic. So it was like a little secret if you knew about the show, like, you're cool, you know? And if you didn't know, I was like, I wish you were cool. And slowly people told their friends. Some of them in the audience I know said that they forced their friends to see it, and it was the best thing. That's over there, yeah. And their friends were like thankful forever. You know, they're like, thank you for forcing me. You know, and it's nice. It's like a little. If you know about it, it's really cool. I love that we're like, you know, an indie kind of darling, and everyone who knows about the show is like, that's so fucking funny. And then if you don't know about the show, it's like, what's wrong with you? You know. But I like it. I like keeping like that. But also, it's nice to share with the world. So I feel like the trajectory of it is every season we're getting more and more people. Yeah. But you guys were the cool people who knew about it.
And season 3 literally just premiered. Like, we're only 3 episodes in, and the 3rd episode just came out on the 10th.
Yeah, so, like it was the first day I landed here, and we got back to the room, and I was like, oh, that's right, we have to go to that. We missed it. It was like after they were showing the movie afterwards, but it was so great that we premiered this week and got to share that with you guys here. It's so fitting, you know? It's like such a perfect show, and we're already up to episode 3. So, I don't know, how many of you guys have seen all 3 episodes so far?
Oh, thank God. We're going to spoil some stuff.
We won't try to spoil as much, but most of the stuff that we'll talk about is not stuff that you would have not known either way if you saw a commercial. It'd be like, oh, I see what's happening in this episode. You know, it's not like anything surprising. So
you came in this role as the familiar, kind of as this like fun background character, but like you've really been moved into the spotlight, especially with the season 2 finale and season 3 episode 1, you're like the star of the show. Yeah.
I didn't plan on that. The first season, Guillermo doesn't really talk a lot. He just talks with his face. Because you have to remember that he's the only human in the room, and so whenever the vampires do something stupid or dangerous or scary, he doesn't speak up because they'll give him another year as a familiar. Like Nando's like, that's it, another thing better, another year as a familiar, and he's like, and he's been doing it for 11 years. So he doesn't want to get in trouble, so every time they see something stupid, he bites his tongue and just looks at the camera, And it's the audience is like, I hear you. Because we all can relate to Guillermo, right? We're all humans. Absolutely.
Yeah. Just regular humans. But going back to the season 2 finale, you kick some ass. Like, you get like an action-packed. It's really the like classic like trench coat, arms out, like action movie vampire killer spin.
It was we have our stunt coordinator Tig is an amazing stunt performer and stunt director, but he also directed an episode of this season. We're up in Toronto, but he is so great at what he does, and it's all like a ballet, right? So I actually took dance classes, believe it or not. So it was like timing, because you're off on the wrong beat and someone gets it in the face, right? And it's a huge scene, and I think I pinned something on my Twitter of the rehearsal for the finale scene, and they were like, "Whoa, how long did that take? Like weeks and weeks." And I was like, "That's the first run. I learned it 45 minutes before." And they were like, "Whoa, what?" It's because we moved really quickly with the show, so like I think it came up to the producers who were like, "So we're gonna do a little bit of like stunt work, but are you okay with like a small punch?" I was like, "Yeah, I can punch." He's like, "Are you small with like a small kick? Are you okay with the kick?" I was like, "Yeah, I can kick." "Are you okay with falling outside a third-story window?" And it's like, you get to flip people off. And it's just like, man. So that was super fun. Looking back, I'm just always like amazed at like, yeah, I did that. It's just like, you surprise yourself. You don't know how powerful you are and how strong you are until you're pushed to your limits. So, and that goes for everyone,
Well, you're a Van Helsing, maybe.
Yeah, well, it's in my blood.
It's in your blood.
But I loved it. And also shooting that scene was really hard. So it was the last day of shooting season 2. It was 2 days before Christmas Eve, because we usually shoot in the fall into winter. And it was the last day. We were going to wrap that day, go home to our families, and I had 104 fever. And the director, Kyle Newacek, who directed Workaholics and all those great episodes, he's like, "Man, how you doing? You good? You think you can do it?" And I was like, yeah. And he was like, "Are you sure?" And it was like he was really, really nice, but basically he was saying that we have to shut down. Everyone has to fly back home and come back here in January from London, from America, from Toronto. And no big pressure, but it'll cost millions of dollars. It'll cost millions and millions of dollars. But up to you, bud. You want to do it, bud? And I'm like, yeah. I'll do it. And I did it.
Another thing about your character that really makes your character is your fabulous sweater collection, which we have to talk about. How involved are you in the process? Are those all hand-picked by you? I can only imagine, based on your shirt, that they are.
Kinda. I don't handpick them. We had a different costume designer for the first 2 seasons, and she was the original costume designer for the film. But then coming back to 3rd season, the world was, shut down, and she's from New Zealand, where they had 0 cases, and we're like, "Come over to the Americas, where we get 1,000." I'm good, thank you. It's like I'm gonna stay where there's 0 cases. So unfortunately, she didn't come back, but we have her casting associate move into the place of the casting designer, and did an amazing job for the 3rd season, where we worked together with, the Van Helsing look, and he had almost like fitted vest and the long sleeve shirt. He's slowly starting to look a little more polished. His collar's not buttoned up all the way. He's starting to be feeling his oats, and his hair's not perfectly coiffed and parted in the middle. Which is a funny story, because when I auditioned for the show, I was too young for the role. Guillermo was 20 years older than I am. And so I was like, oh no, I'm not gonna get this part, but I wanna go in to meet Allison Jones, who's a casting director. And then, do you guys know who Allison Jones is? Raise a hand. No? So she's cast like The Office, Bridesmaids, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, The Golden Girl. So any show you've ever been a fan of, she cast it. So yeah, I wanted to go meet her, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go meet Allison Jones because I went to a wine and cheese night, and I went to my friend Mimi's wine and cheese night, and she had a friend there I'd never met before, and her name was Yvonne. And the next day I got a text from an unknown number. And it was Yvonne saying, hey, I think you're so fucking funny. You should audition for my fiance's new show. And I was like, I don't do those films anymore, man. And I was like, what? And I was like, what? And I was joking, what? And she was like, no, I'm serious. It's a show called What We Do in the Shadows. And I was like, the movie? And she's like, yeah, I like the movie, but it's a show. And you have to hurry because they've cast everyone except for Guillermo, and they start production in like 2 weeks. Wow. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll buy it. And I call my agent, and I was like, can I audition for this thing? And they're like, oh, who told you about this? Her name's Yvonne, and her fiance is a producer. And they were like, what's her fiance's last name? Mm-hmm. 1 second. What's your fiance's last name, girl? And it was like, oh, Garrett Bash. And I was like, Garrett Bash. And so they gave me a complimentary audition, which was like kind of very Hollywood. It's like, they're like, yeah, so you know someone who knows somebody. And I never go in auditions like that. I always go in on my own merit. Like, I'm like, you want to see me? You want to see me. And if you don't, please see me. But I went in on my own. I was like, okay, I'm going to do it because I want to meet Allison. So I say, oh, I'm too young for the role. So I found this gross, like, brown sweater vest in my closet and an orange long sleeve shirt. And I was like, yeah, that's ridiculous. No one would ever wear that on television. And then I parted my hair in the middle and I curled it to the side. And I found these Harry Potter glasses and I punched out the lenses. And I was like, look at us. Who thought? Not me. Not me. And so I was like, if this doesn't stand out, even if I don't get the part, I'll make an impression on Allison. I go in to meet Allison, and Allison's not there. She's in London auditioning for Guillermo's. And I was like, I'm here to see Allison. Like, she's not here. And I was like, oh, okay. And then Ben, the associate, was like, that's okay, we'll put you on tape. So he puts the microphone on my, like, collar. And then I just remember after the audition, I was looking straight forward, and I was like, and I looked at Ben, and he's like, you're done. And I was like, oh. Thank you. And I walked away, I was like, what the fuck did I just do? I was walking out, and as I was walking out, Ben goes, Harvey, wait! And I thought he was going to go, you're going to Hollywood, you know? And I was like, yes! And he's like, the microphone. Thank you so much. And I left the room, and I was just like, I don't know what I did, but I just totally fell into Guillermo that I completely blacked out. And I was out in the waiting room, and I got a call from my agent, so how'd you do? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. And then an hour later, or two, they called and said that they had all voted unanimously to test me with Kayvon. And they had already cast everyone. And I was like, that's so cool. They voted unanimously for the first time because they hadn't split. It was like 40-60. Like, it was, Paul, Taika, Jermaine had to all vote on it. FX, the casting director. And this was the first time that someone had been voted unanimously. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna test. I'm the wild card. They're like, you're the wild card. You're too young for the role. You're the wild card. I was like, okay, that's fine. You're the wild card. And then a week goes by, and I don't hear anything. And I'm like, ah, shit. And it's like the 4 days go by, and it's MLK weekend, and it's a Sunday, and I'm like, they start production next week. I'm not gonna go test. They're not gonna have me do it. I was the wild card. Sometimes they do that. They put you on hold or like a wild card, but they forget about you, and they're like, oh yeah, we found something. Oh, you're still there? Oh yeah, we don't need you. And I was like, they're not gonna need me. And I was driving with my sister from the mall, and we're just, went window shopping basically, and the phone kept ringing like 3 times that day from a 16-digit number. And I was like, ugh, telemarketers. And then finally, on a Sunday, and I'm like on the car ride home with my sister, she's driving, and the phone rings again, and she's like, will you pick up the fucking phone? And I was like, oh my gosh, hey, calm down. And I picked up, and I was like, hello? It says, hey, is this Harvey? And they're like, yeah. It says, hey, it's Taika and Jermaine. Hi, yes, Mr. Waititi, yes. I'm testing for you. No, you're not testing for us. Oh, you just called to let me. Thank you for your time. He's like, no, you're not testing because you're the mate. We're going to see you on set. And I looked at my sister. She's like, what? She pulled over, and we had to stop, and I was like, okay, I'll see you on set. And then I had to call my agents in the first time of my career and be like, I think they thought I was insane. I was like, I booked it! And they're like, Harvey, it's MLK weekend. It's a Sunday. What's going on?" And I was like, "No, I booked it. They called me." And they're like, "Calm down. We'll get back to you." And they called everyone. And then the next day on Monday, they confirmed it. And then Tuesday, I was on the fitting for Guillermo, and Wednesday, I was on set. That's how it worked. But the idea of the sweater and the look for Guillermo, when I went to costuming, Taika was like, "What'd you wear for the audition? We loved it." And I was like, "Oh, I wore this like sweater vest." And I'm like, "You're not gonna, you're gonna do that." It's like, "Yeah, we loved it." And I was like, so the look came from my audition. And then the hair department was like, "What do you want for his hair?" And he's like, "Harvey, what'd you do for your hair for the audition?" I was like, "Oh, I did this like really gross party in the You're gonna do it? Oh, we're going full out, yeah? We're going full, okay, well, I mean, we're probably not gonna wear the, we are. Okay. So I created Guillermo's look without knowing, and it transferred into the show, and that's how the sweater idea came to be.
That's so good! You mentioned, it feels like one of those things where like, some fans probably found the show first and didn't even know it was a movie. The movie was, it was so funny because when you hear Jermaine and Taika tell the story, like they were trying to get it made for so long, and they first had the idea when like Twilight, which I definitely want to talk about given it's an episode, but when, you know, vampires and werewolves were like at the height of pop culture, and like no one wanted to make it because they thought it was dumb, and then got to make it so many years later, and it was such a risk, and like people are still finding it. So how did you first find the movie? Like,
well, you know, it started off as a short,
yeah.
And then the short became crowdfunded by the audience, you know, so they're like, "We love the show, we're making it to a feature," so it took years to make that. And then the show kind of came out of like Paul Sims and like, you know, Garrett and Taika and Jermaine working on this together. So I had known about the film, and it was on queue to watch on my Amazon account, and this is no joke, like it was on queue to watch the night I went to the wine and cheese night. And it was between staying home to watch the movie or going to wine and cheese night. And I'm telling you, this is the faith word and kismet when it's meant to be, because she called me, my friend Mimi Michaels, not a stage name, that's her real name, Mimi Michaels. She was like, "Harvey, I'm only in town for this weekend, and my baby, I just had a baby." And I was like, "Oh, baby." And then I was like, so I stay home, I'm wearing pajamas and watch this movie that I've been putting off, or go to this wine and cheese night and they have wine and cheese.
Which is
wine and cheese.
Which is always hard to say no to.
And so I put on pants and I went over to wine and cheese night, and it was the best decision I could have made. Because after that, after I was gonna get the audition, I still didn't watch the movie. I was like, no, I don't want to be influenced by it. I hate when, you know, you psych yourself as an actor because you like want to be like the actual original craft that they did, and I try not to do that. I was like, no, I want to go into this. I don't want to mimic anyone. I want to be my original self. And this character didn't exist in the movie. Jackie Von Veek's character was the familiar. She was the female familiar, but it's not the same. It's not Guillermo. So I don't want to be, you know, impressed by her. You know, it's like I don't want to be like taking from her craft and making it to my own. I want to do my own style. And I'm glad I did, because afterwards I watched the movie and I was blown away. I was like, "Oh my God, this is so good." It's so good. I would like psych myself out watching the movie beforehand. I would have been too nervous.
It's incredible to hear that too, because what makes the movie so good and what makes everything that Taika and Jermaine do, from Flight of the Conchords and everything they've ever done, is the tone, which is lightning in a bottle. There's no way. So I think had you watched it, it would have been two in your head.
It would have been two in my head.
The fact that you went in an audition like that and your tone fits so perfectly within the show, and that the show has somehow recaptured the magic of the movie.
Yeah, it's rare because, you know, the movie's so good by itself, and that's what we were fearing when we did the show, that people are like, they better not ruin the movie, you know? And we were like, we're not trying to ruin the movie, we're just trying to like join the universe, you know? It's like, you can have different characters in the Marvel universe, you know? It's just like, we're in the same universe with different characters, and I was really like worried at first, but people were like, who were so hesitant to like the show, were like, yeah, I don't want to like it, but yeah, it's good. You know, it's like, that's all we ask for. You know, it's just like, you know, if you like it, you like it. And if you don't, you don't. That's fine too. But for the majority of people are like, yeah, it's its own thing. Because we do have, you know.
Yeah, and after you saw the movie, it was like, oh, I just want to like live in this world more and see like what else happens. And then now that we get to do that all the time. But what's cool is then the way that you know, Taika's character comes back in at times, and Jermaine's character comes back in at times, and more so than that, the way that you guys like kind of you're always so smart and clever in the way that you choose to like acknowledge the pop culture that like originally inspired and influenced what we do in the shadows. So talk a little bit about the the Vampire Council, because I think when all of us saw that, we're like, are they doing this? Wait, they're doing this? And then the Twilight kickball game, which is a recent episode.
Yeah. So the council episode, which is funny, I was just talking to Danny Trejo, who was in that council. So we were saying that Danny's in the street. And that was the last time I think I saw him, because I moved with him here in Canada years ago. And then he was in the council, but I didn't shoot with him. Because these are big celebrity actors who have schedules that there's no way you would be able to get all those actors in one room, like in their schedules. Like there's no way. So the council was actually shot like at different times throughout that year at different locations. Like Wesley Snipes was in a hotel in New Jersey, and like Tilda Swinton was in the UK, and Danny Trejo was like they were scattered. So the way they shot it was the DP, the director of photography, like thought about this. It's the angles, right? So they're in front of us, but they're not. So when I did my scene, none of those people were in front of me. So they were like, I didn't know what Tilda was gonna say. So like they're like, so it was Taika directing the hobby. So Tilda's gonna say something like, and you just scared, right? You're just scared. And your face is scared. And I was like, okay, well, what is she gonna say? Yeah, just scared. You know, and I was like, and action. You know, like, but it's because we don't know but he knows exactly what he wants and what to get out of the actor. So what he needed from me was those reactions, the way I said the line, and then when he directed Tilda like months later, he remembered what he got from me and told Tilda, I need you to present that question like this. So then when editing, it looks seamless, because you guys thought it was the same room, right? Yeah. That's all the Taika's magic and editing, you know, with Jan and everyone. But that's just Hollywood magic.
Wow.
And then what was the other question?
The kickball, like just when you guys decide to like kind of cross the line that would feel too over the top, but the way you approach it is just so, the way that you work in pop culture.
Yeah, I think they do a really good job of, you know, in the last episode where Colin Robinson something like, you know, as you know, Stephanie Giovanna says, I was born this way. And just like Lady Gaga, like her real name, and I was just like, that's so brilliant. We do like throw in those pop, like, you know, culture things, and the funny part is in the pilot, Guillermo doesn't necessarily like Twilight. Like whenever he goes like, oh, I'm going to get glitter to look like that vampire. And I go, Twilight? And he goes, yes, Twilight. And I'm like, you know, and like a lazy eye, like, ugh. Like, so they switched it, and after the pilot, Guillermo does kind of start liking, you know, the Twilight series, because he starts using it as like an escape. Because Nandor stops spending time with him in this recent season because he has a guest that comes and visit, and so he's with the corpse dressed up like a Nandor, looking at Twilight on his iPad, and he's just like cuddling with them, and it's just like getting the affection that he wants from Nandor from a corpse dressed like him, and Twilight bringing back into like the idea that kickball, we play kickball in the scene. And just getting that clip, like getting the approval from, you have to get that, you can't just show stuff like that. You have to go like through lawyers and like showing like, can we show this clip? I'm like, yes, but you gotta stop it at 18 seconds, you know? So all of that detail. But I love that we show all kinds of, you know, vampire world. And we might see more vampire references in the future, as I would love to see. Yeah.
And then just Mark Hamill, like you just, that's all. Just say Mark Hamill. Just his, like it's like a weird. It's just his presence is a pop culture reference, and to bring him in the way that, and he was like a fan of the show and wanted to be in it.
He was a fan of the show. His kids got him into it, and so we were super excited to have him on the show. I mean, I'm a fan, but like, you know, Matt Berry and Kayvon are super fans. Like, this is their childhood, you know, like this is what they love. And so, like, I remember Kayvon being super excited the day he was gonna be on stage. So like, he's almost here. And then like Matt, even though Matt's like cool as a cucumber, he was like, well, is he here yet? You know, like, what? You know, it was just like they could tell the boys were nervous, and I was like nervous too, but those boys were really nervous. And I feel like we were just like an episode opening, you know, to Downton Abbey or something, where like we're the help and we're just waiting for him, and it's like the music playing. he gets out of his car, and we're like waiting for him. Oh, do we bow? Courtesy, and then he just gets out of his car, and he just looks over at me, and he goes, Harvey! And just gives me the biggest hug, and I'm like, oh my god! And then K-Mon's next to me, he's like, and then he went and hugged K-Mon as well, and everyone, he was super lovely. But the fact that he was a fan of the show and supported it, and then we started, during the pandemic, we started a show called Before the Shadows. Did you guys watch that? Yeah. Before the Shadows, where we talk BTS, and we have never before seen footage. If you haven't seen it, go to beforetheshadows.com, and we have like 14 episodes. Mark Hamill asked to like be one, like in an episode, like I had FX be like, hey, he likes the Before the Shadows thing, you should have him on the show. And I was like, absolutely. Yeah, oh yeah. So we did like 2 episodes with him where we show clips, behind the scenes, and stories, and now it's called After the Shadows. So after every episode, every week, if you just stay online, like on social, on YouTube or Instagram or Twitter, we'll play a 10-minute episode with that week's guest or someone to do with that episode, and we show BTS footage that you won't get anywhere else, just in that show.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah.
So cool. One thing you've talked a lot about with your character and just in general, I think we're in a great, horror is at like a height that feels like it's never quite been in our generation. It's like a real renaissance, and yet it's new because there's so much great representation in the LGBTQ community and people of color and Latinx and so much of horror has been about people who've been othered, and now those stories are being told by those voices. And I'd love for you just to talk about that and where you feel like your place is and kind of that stuff.
Well, yeah, I feel like for so long, marginalized groups and groups that were, left out of the narrative for whatever reasons of, queerness, of skin color, of any kind of marginalized group, were made to seem that we're the monsters, And so I think we are drawn to those groups because we are seen as the outsiders, for so long. And so when you look at the movie of Frankenstein being chased down by the villagers with pitchforks, and the real question is, who's the real monster? The person you're chasing or the person who's, doing the pitchforking? It's like when we are all living in the same world, right? And it's just you're choosing who to isolate. And so the world of horror has always been seen as oh my god, that's too scary, that's too, and it's no, it's not, it's wonderful, it's beautiful, it's lovely. Wow, I would try embracing it, you know what I mean? Try embracing it. It's it's nothing bad about it. So for so long, those groups have been put in those categories, but we've come to the place where we can actually tell our stories and actually be proud of loving horror and be proud of being queer and be proud of being brown, and it's just it's fun. For too long, stories have been omitted, but people who are different have always been around. Queer people, people who love horror have always been around, but it's you have to do it in the darkness. It's no, have a whole festival of horror and celebrate it, and look what we're doing. So you guys are here, so congrats.
And I think what's always been so special about that is all of us have felt othered in some way throughout our life, and I think that's why we're all drawn to horror. And I think that so much. I mean, look at Nightmare on Elm Street 2 as a perfect example, and what Mark Patton has gone through as the kind of first Scream King. And if you guys haven't seen his documentary, it's fantastic. And Shudder is actually producing a queer horror documentary right now. And I think that now for those voices to be heard and to be able to tell those stories and not just try and find connections where they were, is so important. And another show that I think has been really important for all types of representation is Los Spookies on HBO, which is so good. If you guys are fans of what we're doing, you should absolutely. Could there ever be any kind of crazy crossover? Given that I know they're separate networks.
I think there's a world. I mean, Fred Armisen's in that.
Yeah.
And that's SNL world. We've had SNL alum on the show. Can anyone name the character? They were emotional vampire. Come on.
Kristen Shaw.
Yeah. Well, Kristen Shaw was from 30 Rock, but also from SNL. What?
Vanessa Bayer.
Vanessa Bayer. Remember Vanessa Bayer from SNL? Remember she's my cat has AIDS and I wasted all my, so we have Colin, who's the energy vampire, and then she's the emotional vampire, and they could battle off each other, and they're just going in the air. It's one of my favorite episodes, and then together. So I always wanted her to come back and schedule, and we have so many people who pop in, you know, if the schedule allows, but there's so many talented people that we're happy to
It
show.
would be so cool, and I feel like the way you guys kind of step across the line with and reach across the aisle with other pop culture, it would be
Yeah, I think
super
so.
fun.
I think it's a world, and we always do it all the time. You
Yeah.
know, we cross over, even with the council.
Yeah.
You know?
What's some other stuff that you've kind of loved in the genre like that? I mean,
let me see. Action choir. I like when we cross over to like artists that are singers. You know?
yeah.
I would love to have like more singers on the show as themselves, just because I want to meet them. We had Britney Spears come on.
Yeah.
Well, now that she's
Now that she's free.
Yeah, now that she's free, we did it, guys. Yeah, we did it. Oh, she'd be incredible.
Yeah. I like to do crossover. I also like to do like comic genius, like Amy Sedaris.
Well, her role in Mandalorian was incredible.
Yeah.
So
I would want her to have Jerry Blank though come to Jerry Blank come to Staten Island. She's like packing a basket. I would love to have her. I'm so obsessed with her. Molly Shannon.
Oh wow.
Yeah, she would be great. Sherry of Terry. I just love the like OG like you know 90s SNL
Yes.
girls.
90s SNL.
Which I would love to. So yeah, they're all like in my book. Yes, all of them, please.
And just throw Chris Kattan in there while you're
Chris
at it. I feel like Chris Kattan has like a big player while we do the show. It's just so perfect. I'm mad it doesn't exist already.
No, you can't have it the name. Yeah.
Another thing that you did that I want to talk about that I was a huge fan of that came out over this time was Werewolves Within. From Josh Rubin, who did a great movie that was a big Sundance movie called Scare Me. If you guys have not seen either of those movies, I think they're both on Shudder. They're VOD, so you should. But Werewolves Within is, in a similar but different way to what we do in the Shadows, just such a unique. It's like such a unique comedy horror approach. It feels a little bit stage play. It feels a little bit melodramatic. Clue whodunit.
Yeah.
But also very werewolf and playing up on those tropes in the way that you guys do in what we do in the Shadows.
Yeah, same world. I feel like I had a reporter tell me, he's like, how does it feel? Like you're like just living in this world, you know, horror comedy. And I was like, I didn't think about it like that. But yeah, this is a world that is super fun. You know, it's like what a great combination, horror and comedy. You know, it's rarely done. If it's done right, it's brilliant. You know, and so I'm lucky enough that I get to be on projects like Shadows, where I do that. That's like my day-to-day job, and then do a movie like Werewolves Within, where you get to work with like Sam Richard, Caleb Watkins, the list, George, and everyone. Like this group of people was like the best like comedy duo group slash like when I see them work together, I'm like, oh, you guys are the best. So them two duo, oh no, you three are the trio. Oh, the four of you. You know what? Everyone here's good. And that's rare because you're never like you get on a show sometimes. And this is like, no tea, no shade, but like you get a show and sometimes you're like, oh, and it's like you get someone who went to Julia or got trained and they're a real thespian, and then you're like, you get someone who's beautiful, tall, and model-esque, and they're like, I started Julia last week. That's cool. I said, yeah, now I'm the star of it. That's cool. How many lines do they have? Just like, because you're only good as your weakest actor, and in these projects, I feel safe. Like playing hot potato with any actor in this group because they'll never drop the ball. That's not always the case, Sometimes you do projects and we're like, ooh, I'm real worried about that scene, It's like, I'm not worried, I didn't learn my lines, It's like, oh boy, So in Werewolves Within, it was so lovely. It was the last project we shot before the pandemic because we were in the middle of the Catskills shooting that. And how many of you guys seen Werewolves Within? Because I don't know okay, so a few of you. And so it takes place in the middle of the woods. So we were in the middle of the woods filming and living. So we had no internet. We had like no access to television. We had no outside source. So we were shooting this whole movie. And then towards the end, someone was like, oh guys, I went into town and someone was talking about Corona. I hate that beer. And they're like, oh, it's like a thing. We're like, whatever. And then so we were filming and kind of living in our own bubble already. And then when I got out, and I went to LA, like it was full blown, like I landed and the next day LA shut down. Wow. And I got home and I was like, hey, I'm happy and home and then ready to take on we're closed. What? It's like, we're closed for like 2 weeks, maybe 3. Maybe 2 years. And it's like, cool. And, but I remember that it was the last thing I shot and it was a great experience. I would do it all over again. Maybe potential for part 2. I don't know.
Oh
It was
my God.
Ubisoft, and it's based on the video game, which was like their biggest video game film ever.
Yeah.
So it's been like it's done great things to the fans. And after the pandemic was over, or when things started picking up again, and theaters opened, it was the first film in theaters.
Yeah.
So it was like a nice bookend, and it was like the last thing we shot, and then we took a break, and the first thing we got back. So it was really wonderful to start where we left off. So
Yeah,
it was great.
absolutely. Yeah. Let's kick it out to you guys. We got a little time. I saw this hand first. Hi.
I was wondering if before you got cast, if you had seen any type of TV-like projects before you got cast in the film, and also what's it like working with type of media and filming as you are?
The only thing I had seen was Thor, and it was thanks to my sister, who loves that movie, and I was like, I guess I'll watch it. But his take on directing, I can always pick it up. He invited me to go to the premiere of Jojo Rabbit at TIFF, and when I tell you, I know, I won the Academy Award for a good reason. I just remember watching that in the theater and bawling. Just the way that he can incorporate comedy with just real human emotions, which is like, we do that all the time with Guillermo on the show. It's all, kind of like thanks to him. Because at the end of the day, we're making a comedy, we want you to laugh, but the comedy has heart, you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, you cheer for Guillermo because you're like, man, they're assholes, they're so mean to him. But you root for him because you're rooting for yourself. Because you see yourself in the human in that form. You see yourself in Guillermo, because we're all Guillermos. We all have a job that overlooks us for promotion. We've all been maybe a little bit of a crush with someone from afar that we don't have the guts to say anything. We've all questioned our sexuality and don't know how to express that feeling. We've all had turmoil, like household relationships with our family. We've all been Guillermo. And so you're only cheering for yourself when you're cheering for Guillermo. So yeah, you get upset when those assholes treat him bad. You're just punching Guillermo because you're telling yourself that. You're telling yourself, like, if I'm in that situation, I would do it differently. But do we? Sometimes we don't. You know what I mean? So it's a nice little mirror. But it's all thanks to Taika, because he finds a way. Like, I mean, when I was watching Jojo Rabbit, you just drop your guard, and then you see those shoes.
Oh.
No, I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but like, you see, just the imagery of that. It was just the way he set that up. Just my heart just completely ripped. I remember, like, after it was done, I went over to him and literally was hugging him. I was like, oh my God, crying. Like, I was like, you did an amazing job. I was like, oh, thanks, Harvey, And I was just like, you're amazing. You did a good job, man. He was like, oh, thanks, Harvey. He's like, he was so like, but that's why he is, the master of what he does. And I will follow him wherever he goes with his directing.
But it's incredible that he can do something like Jojo Rabbit or Hunt for the Wilder People or then go as huge. The fact that Marvel even gave a movie of that size to do when he's the Flight of the Conchords guy, and then he can do a small budget, crowd-funded vampire mockumentary, and it all has a similar heart to it.
Yeah, well that's the thing, right? Like he will give you the product, whether it's a budget of $50 or it's a $50 million film.
Yeah.
Like you will get that same reaction, which is the old saying as an actor, is like, when people are like, what do you like to be better, in theater or like TV or films? Like, for me, it's the same. I'll give you 150% if I'm doing a black box theater with 99 seats or a $50 million budget film. You will get 150% either way. So you will never walk away from a project that I do and say, oh, he filmed it in, or I know that this was a low budget film, so he didn't. It's like, never, absolutely not. And that's the caliber you want in every project that you do and with every person that you work. Why would you want to work with someone who half-asses it? You know what I mean? It's just like, always give 150. Just do it.
Yeah, we're so lucky to live in a time where we have him as a filmmaker. Right here.
What is the craziest and most hilarious memory you have on set?
Oh man, there's a lot.
I don't even know how you guys make it through a scene.
I guess it was a fun moment where we're filming a promo for season 2, and it was Nandor looking at resumes, or as he calls it, resumes, for familiars. And we shoot usually in the fall into winter, and we usually shoot 10 episodes in 9 weeks. So that's a really quick turnaround. Like we're shooting like one episode every 3 to 4 days, which is so quick and unusual for Hollywood, because usually like an episode takes like 8 or 15 days for one episode. Not us. We're like go comedy, and so we're shooting the promos on the weekends. So in the month of December, we go 15 days without a day off. So it's like we go from the first to like basically till we wrap without a day, because we have to shoot the promos, the posters, and the commercials on the weekends. That's the only time we have off. But by SAG rules, we're supposed to be enough time to sleep for the next day, like 8 hours sleep, so whatever was a turnaround. So it was a Sunday night we were shooting, and we had to get this commercial by 10 p.m. and it was already 9:45. And we're like, ooh, we haven't shot a whole commercial. We got 15 minutes. Like, we can do it. And I was like, okay. So it was a scene where like I'm behind Andor and I'm like, my hands are down, and he's looking at the resumes and he's like, this one's called Robert Simmons. He sounds like a rock star, And he's like, what's that thing, Guillermo, that you showed me? And he was like trying to do this. He's like, that thing you showed me now. And I literally almost broke, and I was like, I can't do that. And he's like, and he starts laughing. And now we have 5 minutes left because we started laughing. And we're like, we have 5 minutes left for this commercial. We gotta get this commercial done. And he's like, okay, let's do it. And the director's like, one more take, that's all we get. And we have to get this commercial. And we're like, okay, let's do it. He's like, okay. He sounds like a rock star. What's that thing you told me? And he does it again, and I'm like, they literally cut right before I laugh. They go, what we do in the shadows? Give me this one. So they ended up using it, but they barely made it because I couldn't help it. He makes me laugh all the fucking time on set. He's just so funny. But over here.
Yeah. Oh.
Hi. So when you guys do your filming, are you script based or is it all improv, or how much is it percent-wise?
Well, the scripts are really already amazing the way they are. We'd be happy to shoot them the way they are, but they've given us this liberty, like Tyke and Jermaine have trained us, that we always do the way it's scripted once, and then you do an improv scene. So you already know what the scene's about. You just might not stick exactly to the words, but you got to get it from point A to B, right? So we improvise. So the final product is 50-50. The final product is 50% scripted and 50 improvised. But that's what makes the show so unique, that it feels real, right? You're watching people like, did they say that? You hear the way the inflection. So it's not like a comedy where, three camera like sitcom where it's like, I went down the road, like you're not doing that. You're doing real, grounded, but with the idea of these vampires living in this world where it sounds so ridiculous, right? It's like a farce, but it's so grounded that it feels like, I believe when that Baron vomited pizza. It just goes flying like a balloon through the air. That looks real to me, because you have to keep it grounded with the comedy, but even though these characters are bigger than life. So we would do 50%, 50%, and that's the way that I think the network and everyone loves it, because that's what makes the show what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Right here. Yeah.
So going back to Twilight, I know, but regardless of what you think of the movies, like the soundtrack is elite. If you had to pick like a song for your life and then one for Guillermo's.
Wow, what a question. Did everyone hear that question? Because it deserves repeating. If you had to pick a song from the if you had to pick a song from the Twilight soundtrack to capture and represent your life, what would you pick?
I would say White Demon love song. Do you guys remember that song? I would say, if you look at the soundtrack, I think it's really perfect. It starts off soft, and the lyrics are kind of like depressing. And White Demon,
Is that from the New Moon soundtrack?
Yeah,
it's one of the greatest soundtracks.
I would say that song, absolutely, for Guillermo, because it's hopeful and it sounds like you're going somewhere, and then you're like, am I dead?
I'm just so impressed how quick that you had an answer to that question.
That soundtrack is great.
It's really good.
It's a great soundtrack.
If we can say anything about those movies that are good, it's the New Moon soundtrack.
New Moon soundtrack.
Yeah.
I would say that I've heard it on loop. Yeah.
Have you seen the kickball sequence yet?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's what made that scene. Was the Muse song. Yeah, it was great. Right here.
It's okay if I put this down so you can hear me.
Yeah.
But you're hilarious, man. The way you're changing your voices and bringing the characters to life is incredible. I'm not sure if you do stand-up, but absolutely a riot. I'm excited to see you guys grow and you become bigger, so we really appreciate you coming to Texas, because I think the sky's the limit for you, man. You're absolutely a delight.
Thank you.
It wasn't a question, but whoa, wow.
Yeah, her question is...
Oh, okay.
No, it's not.
Sorry.
Thank you.
That's all I
Can I go? I don't leave. I just go like this. Off the stairs, just like down.
Well, my question is, just because you and Taika, you guys, Taika, just with Disney's and Free Guy, and obviously he's got the new Thor, Bell in his cast, and Star Wars. we got to see you maybe hit Marvel or Star Wars. I mean, you'd be such a delight in one of those universes.
I'm a superhero, yeah. I should be a superhero. I can wear tights. I did play superhero before on the Nickelodeon show. I was a family superheroes, the Thundermans. Did you guys ever watch the Thundermans on Nickelodeon? I played a superhero then, so I wore tights all the time. Against their wishes. So, that was fun. No, but I would love to be in that world.
Everyone keeps saying that like we need more Michael Pena sequences from Ant-Man where he just pops in and retells his story. I don't know, the way that you retold some of these stories, I would love to see you just be the guy that pops in and is like, oh my god, and this happened, and then this happened. And just retell everything that happened in Endgame.
And I don't know. I would love to do any of those worlds. Sound great. And also, there may or may not be talks of that happening.
Yeah, right here.
So now with 3 seasons under your belt, is there anything with your acting style or method that you feel has grown or changed in this path?
Well, I'm a big fan of mockumentaries, so I always wanted to be in a mockumentary, and I grew up watching like Best in Show, What Do You Think of It, For Your Consideration, or Home for Kapoor, the original title. And I've always wanted to be in that world, and so my first taste was doing IFC's documentary Now. You guys know that show? So I did an episode of that called Juan Likes Chicken and Rice. So it's the episode that kind of plays on Hero Drinks the Sushi. It's all based on documentaries. And I got to fly to Colombia to shoot that, and it was my first taste of the documentary world. And it was shortly before Shadows. Like I think it was like a year and a half before Shadows I shot that. And it really gave me that taste of like how to be in a documentary. And once the opportunity came to do it, I was like, oh, this is such my, like it was perfect. Like I've done other shows, obviously, films and shows where it's comedy, and I love doing comedy, but they're like farce, like the farcical, they're over the top, or they're really grounded, but you can't ad-lib, and I really like to improvise, because, in Hollywood, it's like you stick to the script, so you're like, there's times where like, you're like, the cats went outside, no, it's the cat left. It's like, yeah, that's the same thing, right? It's not. Read what's on the script. It's like, yes, sir. And so you don't get that freedom sometimes, and then with this show, we get to have that freedom. Like you're going to work every day, it's like you're excited, and then it makes the product better because the actor is so excited to bring this character to life. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not like Guillermo in real life. But it's so nice to play him because he has all the qualities that I like and that I have in me, but I'm not submissive, I'm not quiet, and so it's nice to play that, which goes to show that you can, don't judge a book by its cover, but also as an actor, it shows, that you have different layers to yourself, right? You're not just one note. When I first started this business only put you in a category. I remember auditioning for roles and it was like, fat guy number 1. And I was like, oh, does this guy have a name? And they're like, no, it says right there, fat guy number 1. And I was like, that's the name the writer gave you? And this was like, how lazy can you be as a writer? And they're like, oh yeah, he's just a fat guy, don't give him a name. You don't deserve a name. And I was like, now it's changed. I mean, you know that it might be that, but it's like, Johnny, or Steve from next door. But I remember when I started that, and people want to put you in a category, and I pride myself in doing roles that show sides of me that's not me, So doing like magicians. Do you have any magicians fans in the audience? Yay! So doing like Benedict and dealing with like depression and dealing with things that are internal is really like a great character to play, So I love to like, do that and stretch my palette of arts, I guess you can call it. And then also doing comedy that's over the top, where it's like, I Love Lucy style. And then doing something like this for Shadows, where it's like he's a badass secretly. So I like doing roles that specifically show people who are round, brown, and proud in a different light. So I pride myself on that.
We have time for like one more, so we're gonna go to Bill Murray here. Zoinks!
Zoinks! Jinkies!
So, when you do these shows, obviously when we go to Shadows, there's tons of great props. Some of my personal favorites are the glitter portrait of you and the and Homer's Kitty Bridge.
Oh God, yeah.
Do you have any that are your personal facts or babies now, or what something you are like when this is over, that's fine?
Well, now when this is over, that's mine now. He had the most original glasses, and I have his Casio watch. There's a parade. I have a parade behind me, guys. I have his Casio watch. I have his glasses, and the thing that I loved the most from the pilot was I got to keep the glitter portrait. And I just have a couple of things. We're not filming this, are we? Incriminating. I have everything and never getting it back. I got to keep, I don't know, well, we have a booth here for that you guys come say hi and get a picture stuff. And one of the pictures there is Guillermo's signature wooden stake pose, you know? He's wearing a brown sweater. So that brown sweater, all the costumes that we have doubles of because we do stunts or sometimes they might get torn or whatever, but we can't do a scene if we don't have doubles of the costume for whatever reason for pickups. We can't take a risk. So that sweater is made out of wool and it's really cool and it's like a V open flap collar. The palette of, you know, Guillermo's like trajectories in that sweater. So I really like that sweater, but one of the costume assistants put it in the washer and it shrunk it into like a doll-sized sweater. And that was my favorite sweater from the whole time we've been doing the show. And I was like, well, what are we gonna do? Like, they don't make this sweater anymore. They don't make those two, and they don't make it anymore, and we can't use it anymore in the show. And I was like, no. But so I have like the shrunken sweater, and then the regular sweater. They let me keep it. And so I have that sweater in my closet now, which is nice because that picture exists, so I'm wearing the wooden stake, but it's the sweaters in my closet. So I have that, and if you come down to the booth, I don't know what booth we're in, but you can come say hi. Oh, it's a room, we're in a room. Yeah, come say hi, you can take a look at the picture, and take a picture with me and all that jazz. We're gonna be there this afternoon.
There we go. All right.